Hello. Shit. Back to back. It's Memorial Day, so I had the day off. And I haven't been doing shit but making edits and posting videos and shit. But just hit Walmart to get a whole lot of tuna. Because that's my new lunch for the. I'm eating a bunch of tuna for lunch every day of the week. I'm finna get abs, but I'm not focused on getting abs. But I'm finna get them. Just wait. Them edits and all that gym shit is about to go crazy once I get abs. I already know. But anyway, let me fix this. So I wanted to just talk about how to handle emotion and how to go about your emotions properly. So I used to think me being as I've always felt like, especially for a man, I've always been actually very sensitive. Not to where I'm breaking down crying and shit and just bawling my eyes out at every moment, but I feel like as a man, I've always been more emotional, I guess. But almost in a way where it's all in my head until I'm alone. Then it's like once I'm alone, all the emotion is there. Every thought that I can't escape those thoughts, that circle of thought. It just keeps on coming back. Everything that I didn't want to think about or haven't have been trying to avoid thinking about, everything that I know that I should be doing, everything is like there once I'm alone. And it's also not that I broke down crying every single time I was alone, but I feel like that was my biggest advantage to being able to learn emotions was all the time that I did have to be just me. No one there to be like, hey, it's okay, this and that. Hey, it's gonna pass. Hey, it already happened. Don't worry about it anymore. No one there to comfort but me. And at the time, I was so critical and so harsh on myself because of basically the stereotypes of what a man should be like. But in a way, the stereotype is true, but at the same time, there's flaws in it. Because even the stereotypical man is always stressed, always frustrated. If you picture the stereotypical man in a relationship, they're always mad at the wife. The wife is never doing enough. Something is always wrong to where he's always stressed. But it comes from all that. It ends up stemming from not being allowed to be in your emotion. And it's not a bad thing to have emotions because emotions are there to show you and to guide you. You're supposed to use your emotions in a way to show you, for example, if something is making you frustrated, if something is making you angry, then there's obviously an issue. Most likely, if you're frustrated, it's because you haven't taken the time to actually think for a solution. You're not speaking up about what the issue is, and you're just trying to deal with it. Anger and frustration is showing you that there is a problem, that something there you don't like. You're not fucking with it. So it's telling you you have to change it. That's the anger and frustration is the energy that you have to transform into motivation and determination to get it done, to get whatever is frustrating and angry out of the way. That is how you use that. Sadness, being sad, being worried, and anxious is all showing you things that you're most likely insecure, things that you have been trying to avoid thinking about, things that actually hurt your ego in a certain way to where it almost feels like it's not you doing it to yourself. But it comes back down to expectation. You can only be anxious out of expectation. If you have no expectation, there is nothing to be worried about. Because if you don't know how something is going to come to be, which is the reality of things, you never know how something is going to go. Once you have expectations, it opens that space for the ego to be hurt. You expected this person to love you a certain way. You expected them to be a certain way. And that's just not who they are. And that's what hurt you at the end of the day because of that expectation that you had for them. And it's honestly, if you think about it, it's very egotistical and controlling for you to have even the thought that they should be that way. Because they can be how they are, because that's what they're supposed to be. Everyone is here to be themselves, and you have to allow them to be. That's why you can't rush anyone's learning, and you can't even try to manipulate it, try to make them like, hey, check this out, because they won't get it, and they won't do it. Till it's time for them to see, and it's time for them to learn, time for them to hear and experience. And some people, it takes a great amount of pain, and some people just don't ever change. And you have to be completely okay with that. Because the best thing you can do for someone else, if what the problem here is you being worried about somebody else, the best thing you can do is be the best version of you for everybody around you. The best version of you then has the energy, then has the love, the attention and focus, has all their shit together to then have spare time to lend an ear, to lend a shoulder to cry on, to be there for someone. Now you have spare money because you have all your financial things together. You have spare money to lend, you have spare money to give. The best thing you can do for everyone in this world is be the best version of you. And being the best version of you starts all from imagining it. You have to picture yourself almost as in a video game where you are just creating a superhero version of yourself with no powers. What do they act like? How do they move? How do they talk? How do they look? How do they dress? Who are they? Where do they come from? Do they let little shit get them angry? Would they be crying at what you're crying about? Would they be worried about what you're worried about? Or would they be doing shit to make sure that nothing goes wrong? Doing the utmost they can do for themselves because that's the most that you can do. That's the best that you can do at the end of the day. It's starting to rain. I hope it's not like messing with the audio. But the only way that you can properly process emotion is by feeling it. If you don't allow yourself to feel it, then there is no clarity at the end of it. Once you feel it and understand why you felt it, where it came from, let's say you actually take the time, right? You feel it. You allow yourself to cry. You allow yourself to be angry, to yell, to scream, to do all this and that. I very much suggest you do this in a space where you're alone, where you can actually do this. And it's completely fine, obviously. But do that, bro. Trust me. Just do that as many times as it takes. Be a fucking crybaby. It doesn't matter, bro. If you're a man, cry, bro. It's fucking okay. It's fine. No one, everyone that told you men don't cry was a fucking liar. Because men have to cry, or else we don't get strong. Because if you don't cry, that means you have not felt enough pain that has broken that barrier of pain. You have to constantly be breaking that barrier of pain, or else you're not gonna be evolving. You're not gonna understand what life is supposed to be like. You have to sit and think, feel, just be with it. Then at the end of it, you'll feel such like a weight. A weight is so, a weight that you didn't even know you were carrying, but it's like a release, almost like inside of your chest area. Maybe even like your upper back, but a release of pressure that is gone. Once you allow yourself to feel it and let go and just let it flow, it'll come. Don't rush it to end. It'll end when it has to. You'll eventually get bored. You'll eventually run out of that energy in you. Once you run out of that energy is when you can start to understand. Once you understand where it comes from, the very root cause, because it wasn't just what hurt you right now. It's what has hurt you similarly back then, and that you had to get over back then. But back then you weren't allowing yourself to feel. So all it does is pile on. And when the pressure is so intense, all what tends to happen is you see people lash out. You see people just make fools of themselves because they couldn't give themselves the time to feel. Once you get to the root cause of the emotion, you have to understand it from both sides. Meaning, if someone hurt you, as as painful and as stupid maybe it might sound, you have to understand their point of view completely, all the way, as much as you can. You have to understand where they're coming from, how they grew up, what they might have dealt with, why they think the way they do, why they react the way they do. And once you understand both sides of the pain, the good and the bad, what came from this pain. Let's say whatever is causing you pain actually happened a couple months ago, but not until now you're allowing it. What came from that pain? What changes came from that pain? And if everything happens for a reason, then that pain was okay. And you have to understand that it was okay. Because no one was meant to go through what you go through other than you. That is why envy and jealousy is stupid. A lot of depression and worry comes from the comparison of you to other people's lives, to how easy they had it, to how much harder they had it, to how rich they are, how poor they are, how they look, how fit they are, how fat they are, how they dress, what cars they have, how they look, even though you can't even be them, which is stupid and it's a waste of energy and a waste of thought. And if that's what you're focused on, that is truly sad and you aren't going to get very far because if that's what you're focused on, that shows where your energy is going. And maybe you are the negatives in this world. Comparison is the thief of joy because there's nothing you can do to be somebody else. And there's nothing they can do to be you. And that's why it's perfectly okay for you to feel what you feel. Because no one understands the pain. No one understands your thoughts the way that you do. But until you allow yourself the moment to actually sit there and be with yourself, to hug yourself, to be there for yourself, to comfort you, love will be very codependent for you. And if not codependent, very narcissistic for you. Till you allow yourself to get through everything that there is to get through, and you are completely fine on your own. To where you know what your emotions, what triggers you, and how to calm it down. How to get yourself out of the pattern of thought, out of the pattern of reaction, the reactionary thoughts that come into your mind as soon as something triggers it. Once you can have the power and take that power back from your mind, you are now the creator. You can now do whatever. The world is yours.